guys, it's Izzy here, and today I'm going to be reviewing all of the books that I read this month. I didn't get to all the books on my TBR, but obviously we still have a few more days left of the month, but it's just not going to be possible. So one of the books that was in the original TBR video is going to be pushed to the August TBR, if you're wondering why August, not July. In July, I mood read the whole month, and I plan on reading a lot of medieval English books, or books set in medieval England, so be sure to subscribe if you are interested in that. But let's get into the video. Last month I didn't finish my TBR either, just because of this book by how long it was. What that I'm speaking of is Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell. I was very scared going into this, not by the size, that's fine, I've read a ton of massive books before, but just because how controversial this era is now, and that I've seen some people say this book is propaganda, but I'm not exactly sure. I haven't done my own research on that, but I can definitely see why. And obviously this has a lot of touchy subjects. It does glamorize, glorify slavery. Characters, it does make sense the way they talk about Black people and Jewish people, Native American people, anybody who's not white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. At that time, people did talk like that, so this is something that is so difficult about reading classics or historical fiction, is that things were not just back then. I mean, today they're not. But more so in the past. So that is something that's difficult, and I heard a lot of people be like, this is the best written, worst book I've ever read. No, I don't think this was a terrible book. I think this is perfectly shows the time that it takes place, and we do have characters that are not racist characters that do try to correct the racist character. Not every single character in here is like that. No, I don't think any of the people in this book are good people, to let y'all know, but I often find when characters are not good people, they're usually more entertaining. I loved reading about these characters because you never knew what they were going to do next. They were so realistic. And I think you can find qualities in all of them that you can relate to, even if you don't want to admit it. But this is a time period that is extremely difficult. In American history, every country has that time in their history, at least in my opinion, they do. And I think this century in American history is that. I mean, obviously all the ones before that were having slavery and all as well. But I think the 1800s were just like kind of amplified for that. This was published in the 1920s or 30s, I'm not exactly sure. Hi, Fred. So, would I recommend picking this up? Yes, but I think you do need to be aware of the historical time period that it is set in, and that there are a ton of trigger warnings, not just for racism and slavery, but a whole other load of stuff, so definitely do look into those. I give a lot more time on my thoughts of this book in my vlogs, so do check out my vlogs, because this is a big book. There's a lot to digest, and I give those thoughts in the vlogs. Next, I have a new purchase and a mood read, and that is Mecca by Susan Straight. This could have been great. This could have been a 5-star. You start out with one character, and you really start to connect with the character, and then it changes, and you might not hear from that character for the whole rest of the book. You might have just had that one chapter. Or you hear from them way later and you're like, well, what were they doing all in that time between? I felt this was going to be really character driven, but I think there was an issue of there being too many characters. So you would have, because the chapters were quite long, so you would have 30 to 50 pages with a character really connect with, and then you would get another 30 to 50 pages of a different character, and the side characters, you get names confused and all of that. So that makes me think, were they not developed enough, even though I felt like I got so much out of them? But why am I confusing them? Like, what is so confusing about this? The writing is the reason that I am giving this a 3-star rather than a 2-star. The writing was great, and this book could have been great. There was so much potential there, and it was kind of reminding me of my favorite book of the year, which is Valentine by Elizabeth Wetmore, but it nowhere hit close to that. There were great concepts and ideas put into this, but they just weren't executed properly. I still have a lot of questions after finishing this book, and this is a standalone, so I'll never get answers for them, which is kind of sad. The book was just very random and confusing, and that is the best way to describe it, so I don't think I would recommend this one since I'm left asking more than I started with. So maybe not pick this one. Let's get to the 5 stars in this video. So the first 5-star book that I completed this month was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood by Quentin Tarantino. This is a character-driven novel at its finest. I've already seen the film, which that film is extremely character-driven. This adds even so much more development to the characters. Like, I didn't think it would be possible, but it is. Liv was still the coolest character in the book as he was in the film, and I felt like Rick's chapters were more boring, so he's still the most boring character in my opinion. So that those same things of how you feel about the characters on screen, I think you will have those same feelings about them on page as well. So if I could be dropped into one story, this would be it. I think that says a lot about the atmosphere and just all that I really have to say about the atmosphere and setting of this story. This is the author's first novel. Obviously, he is great at making movies, but I didn't know how well that would transfer to page. That being said, this is some of the best writing that I've read all year, and I've read 53 books this year. I've read over 50 books this year. This is a debut novel and some of the best writing I've read, so this is crazy to me. My only complaint was that there was some head jumping at the start of the book, but it does get better and better as the book goes along. That's something that I personally have a difficult time with my own writing, is that sometimes I will head jump between characters and not really do a good time, do good at I can't say that word, but saying that it's different characters thinking, that you do see that at the start of this, but as I said, the writing improves and improves as the story goes along. You're thinking that you don't need to read this because you've seen the film, you're wrong. That's all I have to say. You're wrong. This adds a lot of material and it even has a different ending than the film does. Again, this book adds so much more depth to the film. And the story comes exactly as the inner sleeves describe, which is always nice that you're not being catfished. The few chapters that were just the plot of Rick's show, I don't think they were necessary to the story, but they don't take anything away either. So that didn't ruin my reading experience, but I just thought they weren't necessary. So this was obviously a 5 out of 5 stars for me, and this was a part of my 5-star prediction list, and it's the first one to actually hit a full 5-star from that list. Now we have my ebook. That was my ebook actually for May, but it did bleed into June because it is quite a big book. That's my ebooks are only the longest books on my TBR, so that's why. And that is the Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. But again, this was another 5-star that I did not expect to be a 5-star at all, so I was not a huge fan of The Secret History by the same author, but this, it blew my mind. The writing in here, the way it deals with grief, as somebody who went through several deaths fairly recently and got grief for the first time, like I experienced like hard grief for the first time. Reading books recently, Hamnet, I did not like Hamnet that much, but I do think it dealt with grief beautifully. This does the same. I feel like this is a novel really about grief and finding yourself after going through a traumatic event. The writing was great. Character work was great. I can't wait to see the movie, but at the same time I'm scared to see the movie because from the trailer I didn't think it looked that great. Yes, it has a lot of big names in it, but I don't know. That kind of freaks me out. It's only so hard to talk about a 5-star book. I'm like, what else can I tell you rather than read it? It is a beast, but it's worth it. So for Donna Tartt, with The Secret History I did the audiobook for, with this I did the ebook for, and I think the ebook route was the route to go. But also I think if you are just wanting to dive into one book, let's say for the rest of the summer, I think this would be a good pick. Again, there are a lot of triggering subjects in here. As I said, it's about grief and going through that journey of getting out of that cycle. So do look up trigger warnings if you are somebody who does get triggered by what you read. But all I can say is read it. It's beautiful. I love it. Now we have my contemporary pick of the month, and that is An American Marriage by Tayari Jones. I hated all of the male characters presented here. I feel bad saying that, but it's true. I'm an honest person and I have to let y'all know that. So Celestial, even though she was like our only female really our only main female character, she even felt bland to me. They were all angsty, even though they were in their 30s and 40s. They all just felt the same. I felt like if they all had the same name, they would all be the same character. But no, these were all different characters, but they were all one and the same. Like, they all felt the same. Like, you could change the chapters and maybe not even know who you're reading from, except that the setting was different. This could have been a great story if the characters were better written. The atmosphere or setting was perfect for the story, as it does take place mainly in Atlanta and then in small town Louisiana. Things like this story do happen here in the South, and I do feel like it is important to showcase those stories. And just the Southern culture here was down pat 100% right. The writing was the best thing about this book. It fit the story, and it's why I'm going to give this author another chance, even though I wasn't a huge fan of this book itself. And it was just very metaphorical, and that's not something I read a lot of, so I really liked how it was presented here. That was good, but I will admit that it isn't something that I usually go for. Just with what this story was about, I feel like it could have been so much more powerful. It lacked emotion from the characters, and that was the main downfall. But sometimes, like how I told y'all, it was very metaphorical. What if that's why the plot and characters were the way that it was? That not everybody is powerful or has a powerful story. I'm not sure. Now, the last book that I finished this month when I'm filming this video, which is on Monday, I don't know what the date is. Is it the 26th, 27th? I don't know, but it's the last Monday of the month, and the month ends on Thursday. So this is Our American Friend by Anna Pitoniak. So this is a historical fiction. This is also a new purchase, new release, and I don't know what else I was going to say. So this is basically if Melania was Russian and her dad was a KGB agent. As in Melania, I'm talking about Melania Trump. So yeah, the way this book was described was not what I got at all. I thought this was going to be taking place in the 70s, and that the first lady in the 70s was going to be fictional, obviously, but be Russian and all of that. I didn't know that this was mainly going to be about Trump politics, really. So the president is an oil tycoon, and it was like a celebrity in New York and all of that. It was Trump. It was Trump, just with a different name. And the Laura was a model in New York and didn't love the man but married him because his money, he could take care of her or whatever. But Laura has a history that not a lot of people know about. So I thought this was all going to be in the 70s, but it's, as I said, it takes place mainly in modern day with modern politics. I thought it was mainly going to be Cold War politics. But we have our character Sophie, who is writing the biography of Laura, so that she's uncovering Laura's past, and Laura is telling the story of her past of growing up in the Soviet Union, having a dad who was KGB and all of that, and it just wasn't what it was advertised for. The plot was really intriguing, and I did enjoy the plot, but the characters were fine and everything, but it just was okay. I mean, it was a good story, but it wasn't great, and it's not really what I thought it was going to be about. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and as always, comment, rate, and subscribe, and don't forget to ring that notification bell to be notified when all my videos go live. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!